Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Meet Me at the Grizz, the podcast where we share stories, memories, and the spirit of Rotary Scout Reservation, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Ken Clough. Today, we're doing something I always love, hearing directly from a current RSR staff member. We've heard from past staff members in earlier episodes, the people who've helped build the legacy of Rotary, but today we're getting real, on-the-ground perspective of someone who's living the staff experience right now. I'm thrilled to be joined by Logan Middendorf, a multi-year staff member, OA leader, former troop senior patrol leader, and someone who has jumped into camp life with energy, humor, and incredible dedication. Logan brings a first-hand look at what it's really like to move from camper to staff member, to grow into leadership roles, and to make an impact on Scouts every week. In this episode, Logan and I talk about his scouting beginnings, how he got hooked on staff life at RSR, what Staff Week really teaches you, and the flexibility and versatility that define a great staff member. And for anyone thinking about joining the Rotary staff, this episode is packed with advice you don't want to miss. Let's jump right into our conversation with Logan and start at the beginning, with his scouting experience. To start things off, I asked Logan to share a little bit about where it all began, his journey through scouting, the roles he's taken on, and how those early experiences shaped him. Here's Logan talking about his scouting journey. Logan, thank you for joining the podcast. I really appreciate you being here at Meet Me at the Grizz. It's so nice to have a current Rotary staff member on the podcast so we can find out what it's really like. So can you tell us a little bit about, your scouting experience and kind of what interests you about being on the Rotary staff?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ken. So my scouting experience, I started in first grade with Cub Scouts, Pack 232, and the biggest thing that got me in was the Pinewood Derby. I think it gets a bunch of the younger scouts in at their first time because it's definitely an interesting experience. And then it kind of went on from Cub Scouts into Scouts PSA. Learning all the new skills, outdoor skills, first aid skills, and then getting more involved in leadership. So I started as a quartermaster in my troop for 4 years, and then led on to patrol leader, then senior patrol leader, and now I've been on staff for 3 years in different instructor positions, and then a director position this past year.
Now, you've also done, I think, some other things. You're worked with the Order of the Arrow as well?
Yeah, so I've worked with the Order of the Arrow. I was the Inductions and Ceremonial Events Committee Chair for 2.5 years. I organized a bunch of different inductions for airmen, over 200 over the past 2 years, getting inducted. I also attended the National OA Conference in 24 and the National Jamboree in 23 with the contingents from this council.
After hearing about Logan's foundation in scouting, I wanted to know what drew him to Rotary Scout Reservation as a staff member. Like many, he began as a camper, but every staff member has a moment when they say, "Yeah, I want to do this." Here's what sparked that interest for Logan. What attracted you to being on the Rotary staff, and how did that come about? Were you a camper first and at Rotary before you went on staff, or?
Yeah, so I was a camper first in 2018. That was the first year I was a camper. And then again in 21. 2018 definitely was like my first experience. I remember going to badges at drill first class, nature, I think the traffic safety. So I remember going to a bunch of the different areas, learning under the instructors. Some of them now I've worked with for 2 or 3 years. It's definitely an interesting experience. The shift from going as a camper to going as a staff member, working with the staff I learned under.
What really attracted you to being on staff at Rotary?
I was looking for something to do over the summer instead of just sit at home playing Minecraft. I think, and I've always enjoyed camping. From the first winter camp I went on in Cub Scouts to even now, I still enjoy camping. It's one of those things where I shut my brain off at times, just enjoy it, sit by a fire late at night, talking with friends, cooking over a fire, and just being outdoors. And so camp and staff, it's you're outside for 7 weeks, teaching, learning, having fun, and it's just a great experience overall.
Next, Logan walks us through what staff life is really like. From those first few weeks on the job to finding his place in different program areas. We talk about the reality of being a new staff member, his favorite places to work, and what surprised him most, how Staff Week prepared him for success. Here's Logan reflecting on his staff journey so far.
And what did you do as a staff member for your first year?
So my first year, it was interesting because I got hired a few weeks before the season started after some of my friends talked about it at a meeting. And then I was hired as handicrafts instructor for the first. I was asked to help out at community safety as well. So I was working at handicrafts in the afternoon, community safety in the morning. And then week 6, which was the last week of Scouts BSA, was I was at handicrafts in the afternoon and trailed first class in the morning. So I was versatile, always flexible to help wherever was needed.
Now, in your subsequent years, did you still work in those same program areas or did you kind of get settled into one or?
To an extent, in 2024, I worked as a community safety instructor at community safety for the full summer. I wasn't moved anywhere else that summer. And then last year, 2025, I don't know why I said last year, it's still 25. I was Handicrafts Director for the full summer, and that was definitely a great experience.
Now, of all those different areas you worked in, did you have a particular favorite or were they all the same or did you like them equally or?
I think I've enjoyed handicrafts the most because it's similar to what I'm going for in college right now of all the arts and crafts types related stuff. It's all under the giant umbrella that is art because I'm going for studying theater. And so art, like handicrafts, badges, like leatherworking, photography, basketry, and art, they all fall under the giant umbrella as well. So it's stuff I've always been interested in.
Is there anything that surprised you about being on staff that you thought you didn't expect when you went on staff?
Staff week, the week before campers get there, I didn't realize how many helpful trainings we have to get us ready that the campers may never notice because they come in for a week. They come in Sunday, leave Saturday. We're there for 7 weeks. We help out with all sorts of activities like the Camp by Game, the OA Social. Some OA staff members are the leads for that, the OA Service Project. And then we also help out with Cub Scout Day Camp and Cub Scout Resident Camp. We have different trainings specified for, let's say, what's the activities that the Cub Scouts are doing versus what are we doing with Scouts BSA. Cub Scouts, they have a different learning level because of their age dependent and their motor flexibility, fine motor skills. And then Scouts BSA, it's how can we encourage them to go farther in their learning and what can we do to encourage them to learn more and to reach out and not be afraid.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a lot of good information that you learned during staff week. I know when I had, Kyle on the podcast last time, he talked a lot about staff week and how it really helped prepare him and, how much do you really learn at staff week. So it sounds like you had a similar kind of experience. There's just a lot of things that you learn in that week to prepare for camp.
Yeah, staff week is definitely a very great and useful time period. It's also the point of time where it's like the time to inventory, train the staff members in your areas. Like being handicrafts director this year, it was definitely a new experience because instead of being the one trained, I was doing the training. So it was a lot more of here's how we're going to do this. What days are we doing these items in the lessons? When you helped out with photography, it was built into the schedule of if he's unable to make it, we need to be ready to cover these materials on the fly. So it was always a get ready to do this, even if he's here, or always be flexible.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like our motto, isn't it? Be prepared.
Yeah, well, crazy, yeah.
One theme that came up again and again in our conversation was flexibility. The idea that working on staff means stepping into whatever role camp needs, whenever it's needed. I asked Logan to talk more about that versatility and the lessons it taught him both at camp and beyond. Here's what he had to say.
Now, one of the things you told me when we were chatting before the podcast was that, um, and one of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago was the fact that there's a lot of versatility in being on staff. And like you just kind of mentioned, you have to be prepared kind of for anything. Could you talk a little bit about, what you may have learned from all those different positions and the need for flexibility and versatility being on staff and what you may have learned from that?
One of the things that a lot of campers may not realize in our contracts is when we sign for the area that we're teaching in, we also are ready to do all of the duties for a Wednesday night barbecue, Sunday guidance. If they need help at waterfront for dive checks, we do those, swim checks, or if they need extra people for dives, we have all that. So it's a lot of, yes, you're asked for this one specific position, but always be ready to do everything else that may be needed upon you. I know in 2024 it was kind of sprung. We were planning to do the OA service projects. I wasn't expected to be one of the leads, but I jumped in volunteeringly to be one of the leads right off the get go. And then that was the same with, they needed that for this year. They needed a lead at camp for the OA projects. And I stepped up to take that lead.
How does that versatility and that all those, ability to change frequently, has that, helped you outside of scouting?
Yeah, definitely. I remember a few times at college, I've always, like, there's times where we have something planned and then it's a flip the coin, like snap your fingers and it's got to be switched. I've helped with loading in some of the shows that we do, and it's always a on the fly. This needs to get changed to do this because these tools or these hardwares are not working as we expected. So it's always a on the go, get ready to be flexible and change and adapt.
To wrap up our interview, I asked Logan to share the wisdom he's gained from his time on staff, what advice he'd give to the scouts thinking about applying, the qualities that make someone successful at RSR, what he wishes he knew before joining staff, and what keeps him coming back year after year. He also sums up his staff experience in one sentence. Here's Logan with that great advice.
Do you have any advice that you would give to a scout who's thinking about being on staff?
When I was first becoming a staff member, a lot of my father, who was a staff member when he was younger, at Camp Barton, he gave me the advice of, it's a memorable experience. It's one of those once in a lifetime opportunities of you meet your own type of family, your camp family. It's all that where it's these are the people that you will work with, live with, and be with every day for 6 or 7 weeks, and so become friends with them. Do not have any conflicts, and always be flexible.
What do you think are some of the qualities that make a good staff member at Rotary Scout Reservation?
Humor. I definitely remember that. I know I always tried cracking jokes when I was teaching at times with leatherworking. One of the funniest ones to crack was when we were talking about leather, bringing up the different ways of making leather and the jokes that you can do with that. Flexibility, we've talked about that. Time management, because you got to know these badges end, say leatherworking, it's an hour and a half, it's a hour long badge. It goes from 9 to 10. These kids may have to get to waterfront, get changed, so they may need to be let out at 9:40, or you need that, or something like that. So you need to be ready to plan, ask them where they need to go, if they've got to go to a rifle or waterfront, they need the time to get there and change if it's waterfront, or the time to hike all the way across the camp.
Is there anything you wish you knew about being on staff before you became a staff member that you now know?
Definitely some items to bring, because first year on staff, I didn't like the first week of staff week and first week of camp. The tents that we live in are our houses for the summer, so we want to make it feel home like. So I didn't have a bunch of us have carpets, like camp, like outdoor carpets that we put down, so that after a long day of teaching and stuff, we can take our boots off and relax on a carpet instead of the wood planks of the tent platforms. A tarp to go over the tents in case it's rainy, and these tents are old, and a good mattress pad for on the cot as well.
What keeps you coming back each year to be on staff?
The memories I make, the friends I'm with, and it's always something new every year. This past summer I'm coming back in the position of a director, so it's new learning experience for me, and I get to impact more youth than as just an instructor. I get to have more involvement in helping them all learn more of the different badges they learn.
If you could sum up your staff experience in one sentence, what would that be?
Unique. It's definitely an experience. I know going from one location to working three and then back to the first one, it's a unique experience of learning and immediately putting it into action. Basically, the EDGE method.
What is the EDGE method for if our listeners don't really understand that or know what that is?
So the EDGE method is a training method that is used all throughout Scouts. It's used for just general troop meetings. It's used at National Youth Leadership Training. It's used at all sorts of different high-level trainings as well. It is explain. So you're explaining what the issue is or what the problem is that you're trying to learn. You're demonstrating people through it. So, for example, tying a knot. It's a very great way to tie knots because you're explaining it, then you're demonstrating how to do it. Guiding is when they are doing it, but you are there as hands-on to help them learn it. And then enable is when they are able to do it on their own.
After hearing Logan's insights, memories, and advice, it was clear how much he brings to Rotary Scout Reservation. Before we wrapped up our conversation, I thanked him for everything he shared and for everything he does at camp.
Well, Logan, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I appreciate all the things that you've shared about being on staff at Rotary, and it's so great to hear from a current staff member. I was very fortunate this past summer to have the opportunity to work with you when I was up at camp, helping out with Photography Merit Badge, and got to see you in action as the Handicrafts Director. And I think you did a great job, and you did a great job leading your team, and I was very honored to be there and be part of your team. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great meeting you, Ken, and working with you this summer. And thank you for having me on today. I think next time I will see you actually maybe at the Grizz.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of Meet Me at the Grizz. I want to give a huge thank you to Logan Middendorf for joining me and giving us such a thoughtful, honest, and enthusiastic look at life at Rotary Scout Reservation. Logan represents everything that makes the RSR staff family so special: dedication, flexibility, humor, and a love for helping Scouts grow. And if you're a Scout listening to this and you're wondering if being on staff at Rotary might be right for you, I hope today's conversation gives you a clearer picture of what this incredible experience can offer. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast on your favorite platform and share it with a Scout, a leader, or a parent who might want to learn more about summer camp at Rotary. Until next time, this is Ken Clough. Thanks for listening, and as always, I'll see you at the Grizz.